a story about a person who embarks on a spiritual journey. I would say that like that. It's a journey between the material world and the metaphysical world. So I would like Ustad, so just to get on further elaborate on this discussion.
I thought you would go into the summary first, but it's all right. We'll start from the beginning. So this story, The Dream of a Ridiculous Man, is written by Fyodor Dostoyevsky, and you people might have read a few chapters or of his life, about his life, who he was, where he was born in, and what kind of education he got initially, and how he was influenced by the European culture, which was entering into Russia at that time, and he was very much influenced by French Revolution and other aspects of the culture that Europe comes with, like Renaissance and all the other ideas starting from 15th and 16th century. He was seminally influenced by all this, and later on he joined a group of members, a gang, who kind of tried to topple the government, and they were working for betterment of the society, as they would have said. But later on, he was imprisoned. This is Dostoevsky's life. He goes to jail, like many other authors. We saw last time Ernest Hemingway, a journalist, like other journalists. This guy spends time in jail, like Faz Ahmad Faz. Like it's relatable, like Manto, like other great authors, Ghalib as well. So in jail, he spends time studying and reading. But before that, another episode took place. The Tsar at that time, the king of Russia, he signed his death warrant. So he was to be shot by a firing squad, Dostoevsky. So he, among his friends, was standing in a line like this. And there are two stories that one of them tell us that the firing squad came and they shot fake bullets at them. And at that moment, Dostoevsky had a delirium, an epiphany, and at the same time a penchant realization of what life actually is. And he entered into the realm, metaphysical realm, where he saw things, certain things. And as Ghalib would say, "Aate hain ghab se ye mazameen khayal mein, Ghalib sarir khama nawaye saroshan." In this story, we see a beautiful amalgamation of reality and dream. Reality and dream. And you are familiar with the prophetic narration where Prophet peace be upon him tells us that dream is one part of the 46 parts of Nabuwa. So it lives on. The dream is a connection between God and humanity, a connection that will never break. And the people of Tasawwuf, they later on changed the terms and called it Ilham, or later on to Kashf and other problematic terms, which some people accept in our society and others are really, they feel these terms repellent, which they shouldn't have. So The Dream of a Ridiculous Man, Fyodor Dostoevsky, if we look at these 25 pages, we see he starts, if we read the story completely, we find in the middle of the story, the person is giving us the history since Adam's creation till the end of the world. The place, the second earth where he enters, that the earth symbolizes paradise. He compares it, he says it is as fair as paradise. And in this paradise, when a person like the narrator or the speaker is put, he contaminates it, pollutes it. And he uses a beautiful term here. He says, "I was a vile trichina." Trichina. What do you mean by trichina? Trichina is a small earthworm or a tapeworm, a parasitic tapeworm. It reminds you of Bible, where a serpent comes to Eve and whispers certain words in her ears, and later on she pollutes Adam with her ideology, according to the Bible, not the Holy Quran. And in this story, who plays the part of the serpent? Our speaker. Here I would like to take a pause and ask you people a question, and I would want you people to answer. How is this person able to contaminate and corrupt a peaceful society? In between the lines, when you would have read, what did you find? What did he do to pollute them? Would anyone like to answer?
Maybe it's not the nature of evil that pollutes the other world that he witnesses in his dream. It's uh, it's it's like a different human being that human being that brings uh, chaos to that world. It's not the evil in him.
So you're saying it's not the evil present in the person that contaminates the world, but it's the nature of the being itself, existence itself.
Yes.
All right, and there is this another aspect. Before going into more details, we see there are certain symbols used in this book, a short story. One of them is the star. You might remember when the person is walking, coming back from his friend's home. He had a conversation with that engineer. Probably he uses the word engineer. He is returning back. He looks at the sky and he feels darkness is raining and ruling from everywhere. And he sees patches of clouds in the sky. And those clouds certainly open up and a star shimmers on top. Later on, when he thinks that he has committed suicide, but actually he has entered into the trance state, dreamlike state, and he meets that dark creature who is carrying him along towards the heavens. He asks that person, what is that? Is that Sirius? Sirius is a star. It's a symbol. Did you people realize what it was symbol of? And if you would like to intervene and tell us more about Sirius, what kind of a star it is, if anyone has searched about it, I would like your feedback from about this idea, Sirius. Zahid, I would very much like if you said a few words because you are from literature background and your reading and your interpretations really matter to us. Or maybe next time. But if you want to, participate, you may please join. We see another phase in this story. This Sirius is a star, and then another star is mentioned: the sun, nature, light versus reason, and the girl. The girl is the best symbol that we find in this chapter, in this story. Why the girl? Because the girl is the moment. For 2 months, the speaker has bought a revolver. And do you know a particular great thing about this revolver? He is in poor condition. He says, I was poor, but then I bought a revolver which was splendid. A poor person cannot afford a revolver. And he skips meals because he doesn't have money. But now he wants to kill himself. He wants to do it with a revolver which is worthy of taking a life. Then he forestalls and postpones and procrastinates for 2 months. But later, when he sees the girl, it hits him that now is the time when I should kill myself. So the girl is the catalytic symbol in the chapter, in the story. Sorry, I keep mentioning the word chapter. I'm really sorry for that. Why? And you might have come across that narration, which is narrated by Ibrahim ibn Sa'd. He says, حدثنا أبي عن أبي سلمة عن أبي هريرة عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال يدخل أقوام الجنة أفئدتهم مثل أفئدة الطير. People will enter the paradise and their hearts would be as pure as the hearts of birds. So innocent birds, innocent children. This child with pure innocence comes to the speaker or the narrator, whichever word you prefer, the main character, and then she drags his clothes, tugs them, and begs him. And keeps repeating the words "mama, mama," and he says she wasn't crying, but in spasmodic, tone, where her breath is breaking intermittently. Then she keeps crying for help, and this person is rendered inert, and he becomes passive. What kind of person is he? And you might say he is an absurd person. He is a person who lacks faith. He is a person who thinks the world doesn't matter, nothing matters anymore. He is a person who doesn't believe in God. And these atheistic tendencies, which Dostoevsky felt before that bullet was shot, all these people who live in our society, they go to philosophy lectures, literature classes, and then the faith which they usually had in the past phase of their lives, they lose it. That is a kind of a person who would say no to a child when a child comes to him and seeks help. Later on, you will see the same person when he goes into the paradise. He says that these people, I saw fullness of serenity on their faces, which we find in people or in children on our earth. So he realizes that children are innocent. So are the people in the paradise. But this connection, this innocent person cries for help and he stomps his feet. He hits a kind of on the earth and he tries and asks her and drives her away, asks her to go to the police officer and doesn't help her. But this girl makes him realize that this is the moment he should take his life. And then he enters into dreamlike state. And you know how the text ends. It ends with the line, and I tracked out that little girl. There's a problem here. Isn't the moment gone? The moment to help the girl. The girl came to you 2 days ago, 1 day ago, 5 minutes ago. I need help. Now, what will you tracking her? How does it avail? How does it change the past? How does it help the girl? Maybe she found a person who helped her already. I tracked out that little girl, and I shall go on and on. How can you forgive yourself of the guilt that you did, the crime you already committed? A person came to you in the form of let's call a God's person, God's friend. They come to you, ask you for help, and you say no. It's exactly like Slavoj Žižek's idea. Before acting, we should always think, and think. And that is what is wrong with this philosophy, Western philosophy. They will take you from this perfect realm where thoughts, feelings, and actions go hand in hand. إقرار باللسان وتصديق بالجنان وعمل بالأركان أو وعمل بالجوارح. This is what Islam teaches us. But these Western people, they will take you into the realm of thought and render you, incapacitate you, and you won't be able to do what was asked of you. I tracked out that little girl, that innocent girl, and then helped her. But what kind of a person needs a dream or suicide to realize that if a person comes to you, seeks for help, you should help them? A person who lacks faith, a person who doesn't believe in the existence of afterlife, a person who believes that all this world is appurtenance, but that's the word he uses, appurtenance, extension of thought. It belongs in the ideal realm. Nothing outside your mentality exists. When you are dead, the existence ceases, stops for you.
He refuses at the end. What makes him refuse? Because he's feeling less. He doesn't want to be good or bad. Uh, he just wants to be himself at the time. What does a person? Why does it happen to a person that he becomes so negative or having no feelings at all? Can anyone answer it?
I think it is lack of faith, Umad, again. And John Elia would help us when one faith is shaken and he suspends his belief, then अज़ियतनाक उम्मीदों से तुझको अमा पाने की हसरत है नहीं तो. When he sees suffering in the world, now he knows that he doesn't have faith. God is not going to intervene. No deus ex machina. No divine help is going to come. Providence has been lifted, and you see suffering in the world. So it is like salt on the wounds. Your faith was already shaken, and now you have other excuses and alibis to support your atheism, to support your negativity, to support your nihilism. That's what happened to this guy Nietzsche. And then later on, he started revolting against the herd. He was a kind of a person who believed all people who are not wise should be killed and assassinated from the earth. Nietzsche's ideology. And some people say, no, that's not the interpretation. Then what is he talking about? What do you mean by Übermensch? What is he going to do once he climbs on his throne? Is he going to let other people, the sheep, live among him because he's the shepherd? It is actually the lack of faith, but maybe it's something else. Then you should, continue with that, please.
If we contemplate on this, if it's a lack of faith, then why, when he goes back to home, he thinks about that girl, and he thinks that he has done something wrong? Then where from this wrong, the literal meaning of wrong comes from? If he has lack of faith, it's something else. Maybe we can say that Allah Ta'ala has created a man on fitra. If he's faithless or he's having faith, but he's having fitra in him. And again, the paradise he talks about, what makes that paradise a paradise according to him? That is happiness. Maybe when he goes over there, he sees that people are so happy and without any grudge or without any bad feelings for each other. He sees that people love each other over there. And again, why does he talk about love only, happiness only, but what not something else? But he described paradise as something having in it love and not having bad things about, not grudges having towards each other. Why paradise is described as having happiness in it? What makes him think so or dream so? And he says there, how can we describe paradise? Because we haven't seen it. So why is there happiness in it? As we haven't seen it at all.
Is that another question from you?
Yes.
Well, he answers in his own words that it is because of lack of suffering. And because of lack of suffering, and why don't they suffer? They haven't sinned. And he describes it as a world, pre-fallen world, where man has never fallen. Man never sinned. And now I would like to share the answer to the question which I was asking, which was, what was the question I asked earlier? I have forgotten it myself. How does he pollute that place? Yeah, that was the question. And I read the text, and then I had to read it again to get the answer to the question. It is because he says, I talk to them about a yearning melancholy, a yearning anguish which we people have on the earth. And then he changes the topic. And then he comes back to this place, talks to people about the dream, and they tell him, it's a lie, you haven't dreamed it, it is kind of a delirium. And then he says, it wasn't a delirium, because why would I have created this idea afterwards that I polluted them? It is because he started sharing to them the qualities of this earth. And he said, I don't know how I polluted them. But he shared the qualities of this earth, the things people do on this earth, and then he says it started with falsity. People became false. Because of that falsity, jealousy was engendered, born. Because of that jealousy, blood was spilt. Because of that blood, messiahs came, the rescuers. Because of those rescuers, people pelted them with stones and said, you people don't deserve to be here. Get rid of this place. We want you to get rid. We want to get this place rid of you people. Stay away from us. We don't need, saviors. We love suffering. They started loving suffering. So these are the ideas. Later on, they talked about mine and thine. Earlier, what made it a paradise was unity. Everyone, had a single thought. They didn't even need to communicate. They had intuitions. Umar, you were right there. Intuition. It was intuition that told him that he has done something wrong. He should be guilty. Not faith. It was intuition, actually. There is still a standard. Even if you become, you enter into the dark realm, your heart is still alive. There is a single beat of life present in it. It will keep telling you that you're wrong. But this germ of falsity, sensuality, later on, mine and thine, these ideas, took place. And we should mention Abdul Rahman al-Jami here. Because suffering, Dostoevsky keeps mentioning the idea of suffering, and he is confused here. This is something maybe Saki would have loved, but he has left probably. In suffering, seek happiness. Dostoevsky keeps telling, I want suffering. He says, I want suffering in order to love. They believe that love and suffering induces love. Suffering gives birth to love. But it's not exactly the case, because a child, when it is born, loves its mother. Not because of suffering, there is something else going on. And what is that thing? Abdurrahman Jami would agree with this person by saying, Dil farig se dard ishq dil neest. If your heart hasn't pain of ishq in it, it's not a heart. Dil farig se dard ishq dil neest. A heart without suffering of love is not a heart. Tan bi dard dil juz abu gil neest. And if you have a body in form, if you have a body, external body, and you don't have pain within it, you don't have soul of love within it, suffering within it, then you are simply water and mud. You are not a human being. What makes a human being is suffering. But Dostoevsky, Abdurrahman Jami, of course, they are trying to shoot in the dark, and they are reaching to the target, but the dartboard, the main circle of the dartboard is still empty. They are missing the target. The real target is love is engendered because of beauty, and Iqbal is right there. For Iqbal, there should be Jamal, there should be beauty that you love. And in Islamic concept, love comes from two sources. When we find something most interesting and beautiful, and when we want to stay away from something bad and evil, and we go to the place of protection. These are the two places. In a Jalb al-Khair wa daf'ul dar. When we are running away from some harm, we love a person who gives us shelter. And when we are trying to find protection, when we get benefit from a place, we love that place. Dostoevsky keeps telling that suffering will save the world. It is not suffering, actually. It is love that will save the world. And love will not be engendered because of suffering. It will be engendered by something else beyond that, which is kindness, which is help, which is the basic stuff. If you think that you are not suffering, the suffering isn't suffering at all. Suffering is simply immanent to life. Matt, would you like to, take back the mic again for a few moments? Because I thought you would mention Faiz Ahmad Faiz as you.
As Faiz Ahmad Faiz says in one of his ghazals, अपनी तकमील कर रहा हूँ मैं, वरना तुझसे तो मुझको प्यार नहीं. Maybe here Faiz Ahmad's, maybe I will try to connect these two, Fyodor Dostoyevsky and Faiz Ahmad Faiz. If he had helped that girl, he would have helped himself over there.
And I asked you a question there. Isn't that moment gone? Wasn't he supposed to help her earlier? So that's the idea. And there is this idea of darkness which looms over the story. Rameez Bhai, are you present now?
Maybe it's because of the nihilism that he encountered during his time, that he didn't want anything. He didn't want anything from this world. He didn't want any connections. That's why he doesn't make friends. He often gets bumped up into some people on the street. He avoids people most of the time. That's why it's, the world, according to him, is meaningless, maybe. So why would I help that little girl?
Saqib, you know how I love your interpretations. Would you describe him as a sociopath?
Here, Dostoevsky plays a trick with us. Though he says that he's a ridiculous man, but this character contradicts that belief as well, because he's the most self-conscious character in this whole story.
So it would be right to say that he is a person with contradictory beliefs. Because earlier he tells us, I would love my earth, I love my earth only. Later on, when he enters the paradise, he kisses it as well. Earlier he tells us that from the captain's room, which we should have discussed, the captain's cabin, fights everywhere. He says, I do not listen to it. I don't hear any sound coming out from it. I don't pay attention to it. And then he tells us that the fight subsided. So he was listening to it. And he tells us that he doesn't have many thoughts to think about because he has given up thinking. Why has he given up thinking? He says, I gave up caring about anything and all the problems disappeared. And when I bump against the people, not because I was thinking, what do I have to think about? But later on, he tells us, when I entered my room, I started thinking. So he is a person who lies a lot. And Saqib, would you say that it is one of the traits of a sociopath, lying, narrating a story, mentioning people's emotions, manipulating, and then, or would you simply say he's an unreliable character like every single individual on this earth who is confused, don't know what we are talking about? A moment ago, I would say to my, brother here, I love you. After a fight, I am the same person saying, I hate you. And both the statements are equally true.
This is the most ambiguous nature of this story. He says that he's the most self-conscious character in the story, but if we move forward in the story, he contradicts himself. This character contradicts his own belief throughout the story.
Of course he does. And there is a line which I loved. It reminded me of Ghalib, and the line is, a whole candle is burnt every night. A whole candle is burnt every night. And Ghalib says, Game hasti ka asad, kisse ho juz marg ilaj. And he too puts a revolver near his heart in his dream, of course. Game hasti ka asad, kisse ho juz marg ilaj. There is only one solution to all the problems, and that is end, complete annihilation. For him, it is a sort of a thing that could be achieved. For a Muslim, it is impossible because we know what is coming for us is the greater world which will never end. गम हस्ती का असद किससे हो जुज मर्ग इलाज शम्म हर रंग में जलती है सहर होते तक. So this is a beautiful idea by Ghalib, and I think Rameez Bhai is here with us. Rameez Bhai, you may continue from here.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Thank you so much, Mr. Younis and the other mates. I'm so sorry that I cannot join the session, till end because of some, involvement in some things. Although I have, gone through Fyodor Dostoyevsky's The Dream of Ridiculous Man, and what I found after reading, the text of, am I audible, Mr. Younis?
Please continue. Yes, we are listening to you intently.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. What I found after reading his, text is, as you also talked about nihilism. He would, talk about nothingness and meaninglessness, ambiguity, uncertainty, all of the crises he would, gather and discuss them in his text. But we have to remember there is a difference between nihilism and the kind of nihilism he was into it. When he talks about nihilism, we have to remember he doesn't come with nothingness. He comes with the solution. So if he had been into the crisis, the identity crisis, or he couldn't find the meaning in the universe. But later on, when we go through the text, we come to know that he's coming with the solution. So we cannot say he was a nihilist because he comes up with the solution, right? By seeing, by discussing the transformation of a man, right, from materialism to spiritualism, right, and by this text, I would say, when he talks about existential crisis or nothingness, meaninglessness of the world, then he talks about, if you look at each line of the text, you would see the use of a personal pronoun I, which talks about the self, right, and which indirectly gives you the idea that believe in yourself, and it's decide everything for you. This is what he gave his story. And if we look at, if we want to understand we want to relate, or we want to get the ideas of Fyodor Dostoevsky, we have to relate it with, Sigmund Freud, the interpretation of dreams. If you, there are the Sigmund Freud talked about the levels of mind, right, the unconscious, whereas
You suddenly became inaudible. Can you please repeat it?
Are the royal path. Right?
The voice has cut off, Rameez bhai.
Yes,
Can you please repeat a few sentences, one or two?
Okay. Am I audible now?
Yes, you are. From Sigmund Freud.
Please. Am I audible now?
Yes, you are.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was saying that if we want to relate, or if we want to understand, grasp Fyodor Dostoyevsky, we have to relate it with, before we delve into Fyodor Dostoyevsky, let's read about the interpretation of dreams written by Sigmund Freud, right? Where he comes up with the 3 levels of mind, unconscious, as Fyodor Dostoyevsky also points out and highlights that unconscious is the royal road. Right. So this spiritualism, or this enlightenment, we could gather it from inner side. You can get it from yourself.
Can I ask you
you don't have to
question
go
here,
and I would
a question,
yes,
please.
why not?
When this person enters the paradise, he sees that his presence in the paradise would simply pollute it, and this inhitat and the decline will come in the paradise itself, with the presence of a contaminated being, like the speaker.
Yes.
When the speaker enters the paradise loses its shine. Even they start killing each other.
Yes.
Wouldn't you say that Freud would later on tell him to stay away from the girl, not to help her, because once he enters into her innocent realm, he will pollute her as well? Because that is what the dream is telling him.
Absolutely.
If you enter into the paradise, you are a trouble yourself. So stay away from the girl. How would you tackle the
That's absolutely that's absolutely right. That's absolutely correct. Because okay. Then, if I would come to, I was talking about Sigmund Freud. He had, if we want to come up with the concept, or you want to understand Fyodor, let's have some insights into the dream of interpretation written by Sigmund Freud, where he talks about the 3 levels of mind. And then a beautiful line, he says, I don't know how to, link this beautiful quote of Fyodor. I gave up caring about anything, and all problems disappeared. This is one of the beautiful lines I liked about the text. I would repeat it again. I gave up caring about anything, and all problems disappeared. Wow. This is so wonderful. And he says, when you are into the dreams, right? The nature, he talks about the nature of the dream. He says, dreams, you are unconscious, you are in sleep, right? Your unconscious takes part, right? And everything is now under control, of your unconscious. But he says then, reason sometimes take part in the affairs, right? Where he quotes his brother's example. He says that I know that my brother is dead, but still I don't know how he sits beside me, and I am not surprised. So how this desire enters your unconscious, right? Your wishes come into the unconscious. How, in fact, he also points out towards the fact that dreams spur not by head but by heart. And sometimes your reason gives some touches. Reason takes part in your unconscious part of mind. As also Sigmund Freud has said that he has talked about repressed feelings. When you have some emotion in the unconscious, those repressed feelings, they gather in your unconscious, and they are shown to you in the form of the dream.
Rameez bhai, one more question, because the session is about to end. So he comes back to reality, and then he says, oh, now life. And he sees the revolver on the desk. He hits it with his hand,
Yeah.
he thrusts it away.
Yeah.
Would you say that it simply mentions it's the resurrection of his soul, where he believes that suicide was not an option? He, in his despair, in his nihilism,
Yes.
had taken a wrong step.
Yes. Yes, and we can also, add this line that the girl was a kind of a stimulus to his realization.
Indeed, she was. Barakallah fikum.
Yeah.
And
but by the way, Mr. Younis, as I seek apology from all of you, especially from you, but I congratulate you and I thank you, on my behalf, that you are doing a wonderful task, and keep going. So, if you have kind of that free atmosphere, I would love to join again in the next session, inshallah. And by the way, I got so much disturbed because I'm not at home. So I'm outside home, and I was so much, curious to listen to you and discuss some points with all of the mates.
May Allah bless you. May Allah bless you. And I have another question here,
so
and
much.
anyone can weigh in and answer. Thank you, Rameez Bhai, for joining us and sharing your deep insights and your particularly the ideas how you connected Sigmund Freud. I was about to, I was looking at interpretation of dreams earlier there, but barakallah fikum, I forgot, and you simply saved me and you helped us a lot. Thank you for that, rendering. When there's this idea of light.
Thank you, because you gave you spare time for me.
He says that put out the street lamps.
Mr. Younis?
Yes. Yes, Brother Rameez.
So I would like to take part. But I believe that in the next session I will be there, inshallah.
Inshallah. So you're excused, sir. You're excused. It's understood.
Thank you so much.
Barakallah.
Everybody. Thank you so much.
He mentions the idea, put out the street lamps. When he sees light, he says, put out the street lamps. Everything would be less cheerless. This light makes everything cheerless. But once you put out the lamps, extinguish the light, everything would be a bit more cheerful. How do you people see this line? Because I simply, in his absurdity, what is he talking about? The gas made one's heart sadder. Because these lamps, they do not work on electricity but on gas, because it lighted it all up, because I can see the sadness present in the atmosphere. How do you see this? Why would a person want light to be put out? Saqib or anyone, would you please like to answer that question?
Although it may seem that a bright sunny day would provide hope and optimism, in a nihilistic thought of mind, it can light up a fire which consumes oneself.
Barakallah. See, this is why I love the way you see the world. And Faraz would help us by saying, शिकवा जुल्मत शब से तो कई बेहतर था, अपने हिस्से की कोई शम्मा जलाते जाते. Once you see that darkness reigning and then you complain, he could have helped the girl at that moment. I have only one problem with that person. He didn't help her at that moment. And I have the same problem with myself. When it is the moment to show kindness, I am late. हमेशा देर करता हूँ, like Munir Niyazi would say, सितारे जो दमकते हैं किसी की चश्मे हराम है. I'm always late. When it is time to give a smile to a person, I am rude and mean. Later on I show kindness, but it is too late. Is it too late for the character here? That was the question I asked earlier. And as Faraz would say, "ए खुदा आज उसे सबका मुकद्दर कर दे, वो मोहब्बत की जो इंसान को पैगंबर कर दे." This love, this unity, maybe this is the answer to all our problems. A bit of faith, and there is difference between lack of faith and lack in faith. And Umad, you would take help from this idea. Lack of faith is when you do not believe in anything. Lack in faith means you have 50% of faith only, or 20%. So there is difference between the two, and this lack of faith will certainly cause problems for you. And yes, Zahid, please continue.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Ustad, you just said that you have the problem with this guy that he did not help that girl exactly in that moment.
Yes,
But what I believe is this was a natural human tendency or act which he did. As you said, हमेशा देर कर देता हूँ मैं. In fact, in the short story, one of my favorite lines, he says, "So long as I was still a human being and not nothingness, I was alive and so could suffer, be angry, and feel shame at my actions." So he didn't help the girl, that is true. But in the second chapter, he is saying that I am feeling shame at my actions. So it is a normal human tendency. We humans are
but
bound.
that is the problem. You see, if he feels shame, he should have felt the dire need of the girl at that moment. Wouldn't you say? That shame, which comes at the later moment, simply says he is lying when he says when he was a human being. He is still a human being. That's why he has this tendency to feel shame. Otherwise, he shouldn't have been able to. I believe you're right, of course, because he needs the second chance. But did he delay?
Yes, of course, like all human
And
beings.
is delaying
Like all
bad?
human beings.
If our Kashmiri mother meets him, wouldn't
Yes.
she curse him?
Of course.
But she would delay herself.
But my point is, like all human beings, he committed a mistake. That's it. And this is what being a human is.
And on page 246, he says, "Listen, who does not make mistakes?"
Exactly what I said.
Maybe in this short story, Dostoevsky played a whole satire on humankind, what we in literature call manipia. Maybe he is ridiculing all humankind in this story.
And maybe we should mention this point now because Saqib has evoked it. Dostoevsky, मैं उर्दू में कहता हूँ, Dostoevsky is simply telling, yes, one moment please, Ishrat. Dostoevsky is telling us that this is how a ridiculous person would think. He would dream of having a dream so that he might change himself later, but he would never act. He is nihilistic from the beginning to the end. This is a dream that he would have, that one day he might be able to help the girl. Yeah, I would help the girl now. Believe me, next day when he leaves, goes to the girl's house, something will happen, during the track. Maybe I am a nihilist here. He would run away from the path again. Why wouldn't he change himself again? Why wouldn't he switch again? Why would this epiphany change his life forever? कितनी बार मैं खुद को कहता हूँ कल मैं नहीं करूँगा, परसों मैं नहीं करूँगा, and then I keep doing the same stuff. This is a dream. It will always remain a dream. Yes, Ishrat, please continue. Maybe that is one of the ways of looking at it. Someone had raised the hand. Can they please talk if they had a question? Or was it a mistake? Okay, I think we should stop here. We have discussed a bit from this, a bit from that, and he at one moment says, "A dream. What is a dream? And is not our life a dream?" As Edgar Allan Poe would say, life is a dream within a dream. All that we see or seem is a dream within a dream. And he says at the beginning line is beautiful. I am a ridiculous person, and now they call me a madman. And he agrees. Yes, Saqib, please continue.
Ustad, do you remember one day when we were in Ali Masjid? You asked a question. You asked us all a question about the dream.
Space and time.
Space and time. Can we just elaborate on this? Having this conversation in mind, having this story in mind. How this person who dreams has he really left the time and space in this dream? Or
And
is
at
he
that
still
time
connected?
as well, I was mentioning how time suspends when you enter into the realm of dream. And he says, I don't know how many years I spent in that paradise, thousands of years probably. That's what he says. It took many years. He sees them having conversation with the trees, and they don't need to talk to trees. There is a kind of, synchronization taking place. He says that they talk to stars. They have created a channel with which they understand the stars. And he says that there is death in that paradise as well. Those people also die. He sees all those things happening. Then he tells them about his stories, how the things work on earth. पहले ये बोलते कि मुझे गुरूर है, मैं नाज़ूम वाला इंसान हूँ, लेकिन मैं खामोश रहा उनके सामने. And I don't know why I was silent, because I knew things, but their knowledge was superior. Later on, when he talks, he starts giving them his interpretation of the world. That's how he corrupts them, by using his tongue, by using his language. Believe me, that is how they get corrupted. जब आप अपने मसाइल किसी दूसरे बंदे के सामने पेश कर देते, अपने ख्यालात, अपनी absurdity, वो बंदा धीरे धीरे इन्हितात की ओर जाता है, ज़वाल की ओर जाता है. If you stay away, if you stay calm, and you're like, okay, there are troubles in my life, problems I'm dealing with, I'll deal with them on my own, all other people will live happily. It's when we start interfering in each other's business. And Alice in the Wonderland says that the world would go quicker if people started minding their own businesses. But so time and space is suspense in the dream realm. Wallahi, it does. So that is why he says, my brother is dead, but sometimes I see him coming in front of me. 5 years ago he died, and I forget that he was dead. He sees that people carry his coffin, and then the grave opens up. He goes towards the skies. He sees another sun, another earth. How many years would it take him, even if he's going with the speed of light? It would take him years, ages.
But there is still a sense of time in there. There is still a sense of time.
By suspension, we mean these laws of physics that we study in our everyday life. These laws of physics, they suspend. But the laws of physics, which are in a relative, found everywhere, they wouldn't. When he comes back, did he age or not? He didn't age. Only 5 minutes were gone, or half an hour. But in half an hour, he was able to see a big universe. And imagine this. He saw paradise. So his mind opened up. The space changed. And he believed that it was the truth, the reality he was seeing. So trees, the star, big star in your mind, subhanAllah. As we studied yesterday in Abdul Bar, a person was asked, is God able to create a universe inside an egg? Yes, he is. Because our head is an egg. And then comes Martin. And then comes this writer and writes this thick book. Comes from the egg. So there is a bigger space that exists inside our mind. I think we should stop here because Isha has come. If you have any quick questions, we would like to answer. But before that, I would ask you people to read a bit about existentialism. And later on, we might discuss Premchand, Munshi Premchand, his Dobel and other stories, particularly Idgah. Yes, there is a questioner raising his hand. You might ask a question, please.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Can we say this is how the social contract came into being? Like as Jean-Jacques Rousseau says? Like, as you mentioned that how things would get corrupted when one person introduces something of their own to someone else. So can we say this is how the social contract has come into being?
But the social contract itself is a doubt. Is someone not minding his own business and telling you, no, this is the contract, this is the thing, this is how we should live.